Law Weekly features the views of two senior lawyers on how the judiciary performed in year 2021 and what it can improve on in this new year. The General Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association, Joyce Odua, and a senior advocate of Nigeria, Professor Fidelis Odita, are our guests. We also have a few highlights of the top legal events of the year 2021. Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to Law Weekly. I'm Shola Shieli. Like 2020, 2021 was an eventful and very controversial year for the Nigerian judiciary. The issues of image and trust that have plagued this third arm of government over the years simply refuse to go away.
Indeed, the judiciary needs to find a way to earn back public trust. Conflicting orders from courts of coordinate jurisdiction certainly do not engender that. In the year 2021, the Chief Justice of Nigeria summoned the heads of concerned courts as part of efforts to stem the recent wave of embarrassing and conflicting ex parte orders from judges in their jurisdictions. In the end, the National Judicial Council barred 3 judges from promotion to higher bench for a period ranging from 2 to 5 years. Another low moment for the judiciary in the year 2021 was the industrial action by the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria, JUSN, on April the 6th to demand for financial autonomy. The strike paralyzed the justice system and resulted in extended prison remands for waiting trial inmates and lengthy delays for civil matters. The association eventually suspended the strike on June the 9th following the intervention of some stakeholders in the judiciary and an agreement with state governors on the implementation of financial autonomy for state judiciaries. On the End SARS protest, the various panels set up across the states to investigate the alleged atrocities committed by men of the disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad submitted their reports. But it was sad to note that controversy trails the report submitted by the Lagos State Judicial Panel, which also probed the October 20, 2020 alleged shooting of protesters at the Lekki toll gate. But perhaps the most controversial event in the justice sector was the October 29 invasion of the Abuja residence of the second most senior justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Mary Odili. It was so controversial that all security agencies, including the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, denied involvement and distanced themselves from the incident, but owing to serious outcry from the public, 15 suspects said to be involved have been arraigned at the Federal High Court, Abuja. 2022 brings renewed hope. Hope that judiciary will introduce reforms that will build its reputation and achieve speedier dispensation of cases without fear and favor.
With all of these issues that shape the year 2021, how do legal practitioners assess the judiciary? I have the views of a senior advocate of Nigeria and Queen's Counsel, Professor Fidelis Odita. Prof, the end of a year always provides a good opportunity to reflect on what has been so as to make projections for a new year. I want you to look back at 2021 and what has happened in the judiciary and give us your assessment of how well the judiciary fared. What were the major shortcomings that you identified?
Thank you, Shola. This is a big question. I wish I kept a diary of events which affected the judiciary. But taking a broad overview, I'd say that 2021 has been, in many respects, a peculiar year. It's a year which was affected in part by the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a year, or it is a year, which has been affected also by the prolonged JUSN strike. It's been a year where we have seen the courts, especially those in Lagos State, struggle with the use of technology. It is a year in which we've seen, as we've also seen in the past, widespread misuse of interim ex parte reliefs. It's been a year which, in terms of the work ethic of the judiciary, has noticed very little change. So on the whole, I must say there is very little to be cheerful about in 2021. But beyond that, it's also a year, although um, it's not directly affecting the performance of the judiciary, but it's a year in which we've seen very questionable judicial appointments. So as I said earlier, there's very little to cheer in 2021.
Let me touch on one of the things that you talked about, the work ethics of the judiciary. Can you, expatiate on that?
Yes. In most places that I have litigated in, most jurisdictions, the judiciary sits at the appointed time. So if you take uh, London, for example, the courts sit at 10. Everyone knows that the court sits at 10. When you turn up at 10, the court will sit at 10, or a minute past 10, or at most 2 minutes past 10. But in Nigeria, in many cases, regrettably, the judges don't turn up to sit at 9. Very many of them sit at 10, some at 10:30. In some cases, you turn up in court and you'll be told that this court will not sit until 11. No prior notice, no regard for your time, no regard for the use of a public resource, which a court is. And you just find that some judicial officers act as if the court is their personal fiefdom, where they can lord it over everyone. Having said that, of course, there is a significant minority of judicial officers who are very diligent, they turn up on time, they deliver their rulings and judgments on time, they are appropriately courteous to counsel and to the litigants. But unfortunately, those judicial officers are very much in the minority. So there's a big problem with work ethic. People just act, judicial officers act with impunity. And I think it's the same in discipline, which characterizes much of public life in Nigeria.
For the majority whose work ethics are questionable, I suppose that the responsibility lies with the National Judicial Council to shape them up and discipline them and make sure that they deliver. What would you suggest? What happens with global trends? How is this issue handled globally?
I think it's first a matter of personal discipline. If you instruct me to do a case for you, I always turn up at the right time. I don't need anyone to sanction me to turn up on time. It's just a matter of personal responsibility. You are appointed, very many of them, or if not all of them, lobbied for their positions. So the discipline starts with the person. You don't have to wait for someone to tell you to do the right thing. As an adult, all judicial officers are adults. The last time I checked, I did not see any minor. I did not see any school kids that required parental intervention to do the right thing. They should start first by setting themselves a reasonable personal standard. Once you set yourself a reasonable personal standard, then you'll be able to ratchet up your own standard. We cannot expect the NJC to be telling judges when to sit. Everybody knows when to sit. The judges have already been told when to sit. It's just like saying everybody knows the law. You don't expect to be told every day you must obey the law. You just have to comply. That's the first thing. And where they fail to sit on time, there should be appropriate remedies. And I say this because we also sit as arbitrators. And notwithstanding the logistical and other difficulties that people point to, especially in Lagos, the tribunals manage to sit at the time set, whether it is 9 a.m., whether it is 8 a.m. occasionally, whether it is 9:30 or 10 a.m., they sit on time. There is absolutely no reason why the courts cannot sit on time. So the discipline that one needs to see and the improvement in the court system must start with that basic work ethic, where the judicial officers turn up on time and take their work seriously. Don't see it as something which is a position of prestige without any responsibility.
I hear what you say, Prof, about self-discipline. Is it also an issue of discipline when judges entertain cases, courts of coordinate jurisdiction entertain cases of same parties on same subject matters as we have seen in the recent past? And what do you make of the way that the NJC has dealt with this issue, barring 3 judges from promotion for a period of 2 to 5 years? Do you think that that punishment is adequate?
Well, first of all, I think in a country where we have very low expectations of ourselves and of our public officials, we must welcome that small step as an important step for mankind and womankind in Nigeria. Otherwise, one would have said it's woefully inadequate in many respects. First of all those ex parte orders and the sanctions imposed all arose from the secondus litigation, the chairmanship of PDP. So there is no other example. All of them concern the struggle for power, more or less, between power blocks within the People Democratic Party, especially between Mr. Wike and the secondus that he more or less imposed on the People Democratic Party as their chairman. So it is very difficult to extrapolate from that limited intervention that we're now going to see more active intervention by the NJC. That's point number one. The second is that by saying these judges are not going to be promoted for 2 to 5 years, that's just a little rap on the knuckle. Who says that they are due to be promoted within 2 to 5 years? Where does a high court judge get promoted to? What about those who have been sitting for 15, 20 years without promotion? Is it because they made conflicting ex parte orders? The reality is that judges get promoted in Nigeria at any rate to the higher bench where there is a vacancy in their geopolitical zone. So if, for example, someone has already been appointed from your geopolitical zone, until another vacancy arises, which might be 7 years, it might be 10 years, there will be no question of vacancy. So I don't understand how you can say you won't be promoted within 2 or 3 or within 2 or 5 years. It's a different system where, say, maybe the promotion they made is increasing their pay. I don't know what their pay is, whether like public servants, they increase their salaries annually or periodically, and therefore there won't be any increase in your salary or your allowances. But if promotion means promotion to higher judicial office, it seems to me that that is almost like a little rap on the knuckle, not much effect at all. But as I said at the beginning, because we're in a country and we're people of low expectation, people have applauded that as an important development. Unfortunately, I cannot bring myself to regard that as an important development.
What, in your view, would have been an appropriate punishment?
An appropriate punishment would have been asking them to retire. There are a number of qualified lawyers in Nigeria seeking appointments to the judicial office, where you see people who have erred, not through inadvertence, because anyone can make a mistake, but you see someone who has engaged in deliberate wrongdoing, you have to ask the person to leave the judiciary, because by making the orders in question, the person has shown that he or she is not fit to be a judge.
Welcome back. The largest body of lawyers, the Nigerian Bar Association, also intervened in topical issues that shaped the year. In this next interview, the General Secretary of the Bar shares with us some of the plans of the Bar for its members this new year, but first, an assessment of the performance of the judiciary.
When the year started, it started well, and before you know what happened, April 6th, Jusun strike. And this took us 2 months because it started April 6th and ended 7th of June. And within this period, there was a backlog, huge one, for the system. And it really affected the system because coming back to start giving dates was a problem because we know that most of the time when they even called off the strike, when you go to court, they will say there is no date until maybe 6 months after, 1 year after. So it was really bad. But the fact is that I will say the judiciary tried, because, you know, we have men and women of capacity there. They tried their best. Because, you know, even in your house, when you have a backlog of some days, not to talk about backlog of 2 months, it was difficult. And from what we have in our system, you know, the COVID problem also affected the judiciary. COVID issue in the sense that we in Nigeria, we have not really picked up from where we are supposed to pick up from. Most jurisdictions is different. The COVID stuff have really helped them. They have gone tech-wise. But in Nigeria, no, we are still in our analog system. You know, you go to court, the judge is still taking its, taking his records by hand. It's really difficult, Shola. You know, we are putting them under so much pressure. And I think all this boils down to the same thing, the independence of the judiciary. And you know that was the reason why JUSUN, that is the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria, went on strike, because of their independence. So you find out that this was really a problem for them. And you look at it, in Lagos, Lagos had a problem. When this issue happened last year, you find out that Lagos, the court, was burnt down. And that was one of the best courts and one of the biggest courts in the country. And if you know what is happening in Nigeria, you find out that more than 70% of the cases in Nigeria is actually in Lagos. And with this, it really affected the judiciary. So you find out that there are a lot of things we need to do for the judiciary. And this talk of the independence of the judiciary, it's very, very important. We know that the federal government have adhered to that. The states, some of the states are working on that. Some still needs to do it. So we're using this opportunity to call on them to try and make sure that the independence of the judiciary, it's given to them.
So talking about the financial independence of the judiciary, what specifically is the NBA doing to help the judiciary attain financial autonomy?
If you check the constitution of the NBA, part of our objective is also to defend the judiciary. And I can afford to tell you that Mr. President and the ESCO and the NBA, they are really working hard on this to, protect the independence of the judiciary and also to call forth for the independence of the judiciary.
Are you meeting with state governments to exert pressure on them?
Yes, I know that the president have spoken with some state governors in respect of that. And their feedback also have been good, because some states, I don't just want to mention, have said that, okay, we have given our judiciary the independence that they need. And all this is because of also the pressure that the NBA is putting on them. Apart from the strike, the NBA is still, advocating and also interacting with the governors to be able to give the independence to the judiciary.
One other issue that I want to also talk about is, we saw that the NJC recently came out to punish 3 judges for giving conflicting court orders across board. They said that they would be barred for a period of 2 to 5 years from promotion. And then some people have asked questions about the lawyers who filed those processes, knowing that same subject matter, same parties were before some courts, before engaging in forum shopping to file those cases before other judges. At the last NEC meeting of the NBA, we heard that the NBA resolved that those lawyers would be reported to the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee. Where are we with that? Has the NBA reported them? Do we have any idea of when the panels will start sitting, when they will start to hear these cases? And, just generally give us information about that.
We're so happy when we heard what the NJC did concerning those judges, by saying that, okay, your promotion is frozen for 2 to 5 years because of what they did. Actually, they did well. And like you just said, NEC, in our last NEC meeting of December 16th, in Abeokuta, NEC resolved on that also. We set up a committee was set up by the president, and they came up with also their report, and their report was looked into, and like you said, the lawyers What they're doing now is actually getting the processes. You know, from the processes, you will know the lawyers that were actually involved in the matter. And once those names are put together, it's going to be sent to the LPDC. And there's something I want to clarify, you know, like the new rules of the LPDC, March 2020, that came up, does not give the NBA the power any longer to investigate matters against lawyers. So it's the LPDC. So once we get those lists, it will be forwarded to me, actually the list from the committee as the General Secretary of the NBA. So it will be forwarded to me. I will put it together. We will now send it to the LPDC to, you know, look at the matter and see what punishment also they will need to met out on the lawyers that did that. So that should be a deterrent.
But do we have a time frame within which all these processes, you say the NBA is in the process of gathering all the processes to determine the lawyers. Do we have a time frame within which this is supposed to be done?
In less than 2 weeks, they should be able to do that. Okay. I believe that in the first few weeks of January, by God's grace, we should be able to come out with that.
And then the LPDC will,
yes,
will start to sit. Because people are worried that if it takes too long, it might be swept under the carpet. Oh, no,
not under this government. Not under this government. It will be swept under the carpet because it really matters. Because we really, the NBA really need to sanitize itself. And that's what the NBA is doing.
I also want to talk about the issue of welfare of lawyers.
Yeah.
This current administration, the leadership of the NBA, you know, it was one of the things on which they came into office. We're going to address issues of welfare. And I see that the NBA president has rolled out some initiative. For those who don't understand, you know, what this is all about, can you just break it down?
For the welfare of the NBA, members of the NBA, it has really been wonderful in this administration. For example, we have the insurance, life insurance. And when it comes to that life insurance, before it was there before we came in, but it was 1 million. When we lose a member, the insurance company will pay 1 million. But when our administration came in, you know, there was a negotiation. You know, the president thought, okay, it's good to take it higher. There was this negotiation with the insurance company. So once one loses a member now, what the person gets is no longer 1 million, but 2 million. You can see the improvement. And then number 2, we also have a permanent disability, 1 million, and critical ailment, 500,000. Not only that, the president met with the ESCO and discussed, and then later on got to NEC and got the approval to pay for 1,000 lawyers free of charge. Maybe our lawyers that we feel that, you know, cannot pay. So about 1,000 was our pilot program. So with the 1,000 now, we have started. Not only that, the MB had to pay, we had to pay 15 million for those 1,000 people. But it's open to all lawyers. It's open to all lawyers. As long as you pay your practicing fees and your practicing fee, you are entitled to it. But it's not free this time. You pay 15,000, okay. And that 15,000 covers for a year. No,
yearly.
For a year, and it doesn't only cover just primary and secondary ailments. It moved from primary, secondary, and tertiary ailments. So it's really good. It was a really wonderful negotiation. At the last NEC meeting, we have what we call the cash finance scheme. Now, you know, most lawyers, they want to open a law firm, but they don't have the cash to do that. The president talked about that. Bank, we're working on it, finalizing it, to be able to get loan for maybe their office equipment, loan for their books, their library, and a lot. And with that, we are going to, you know, there's this fund, the MBA fund. We're going to start it off with 1.5 billion. You understand? So that would be like a stabilization fund. Yeah, stabilization fund for our members that will want to take the loan. And once they take the loan, and the loan, not loan, you know, most loan now is double digits, right? But this time around, we have been able to negotiate for it to be just a one digit. Single digits wow. Loan, which might be 9%. Which might be 8%, you know, but the fact is that the banks will still look at the way that one will be able to pay. And I think it's something worth doing. It's a wonderful initiative by this administration.
That's the show. Thank you for watching. Please catch up with past episodes on our YouTube page. I am Shola Shele, wishing you all a happy new year.